Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to class today. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording, thank you. So this week, as we get started, we'll start out here with just a little reminder of an announcement that I posted yesterday, which is that there will be no study hall this week. I'll be leaving town Thursday morning to go to a cybersecurity conference up toward Asheville. So I will not be in town on Thursday. We will have our regular study hall next Thursday, like we normally would. So today is just a continuation of last week. Right, last week we started talking about Git, and we used Git in a local project to do version control. We like Git. Git is very useful to us. Right, and we can use Git going forward in all sorts of classes. Right, we essentially said that Git allowed us to do version control, which is very useful. We basically said, it's like Control Z on steroids. Right? Because if we can take control of our versions, make a new version every time that we need a new version, then if we make some big mistake or we accidentally delete a bunch of stuff, then we could just revert and pull an old version the way that we were doing last week, right? Everything that we did last week, we did locally on our own machines. And what we're going to talk about today is going to focus on GitHub and being able to use GitHub repositories. So we're actually going to spend a large part of today just working in Git and GitHub, just doing all sorts of demonstrations and working with these tools. Right, so we'll put a site online with Git, and then we'll look at how we deal with other projects. So these will be things that will be good for you to use now, but it'll also be good for you to use for the remainder of the semester as we are, looking at your final project and stuff. So just as kind of a reminder, we have this XKCD comic here about Git. Kind of a funny look at it, right? We can see here it says, this is Git. It tracks collaborative work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory tree model, right? That's what we were talking about last week, right? One of the things that we said last week was that everybody who had a copy of the work that was in a Git repository had a version of that work that was just as valid as anyone else. So we have this tree model that sort of, gives everybody the same thing, and that if we, make new versions, it creates a new version in a tree structure, and we can branch off and create branches. That's one of the things that we're going to be doing today. So this is Git. It tracks collaborative work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory tree model. Cool. How do we use it? No idea. Just memorize these shell commands and type them to sync up. If you get errors, save your work elsewhere, delete the project, and download a fresh copy. Which, sometimes we do. Right? Sometimes there's some weird stuff that we get into with Git where it won't, work quite right for us. There are fixes to it, which is something that, this comic might not let on to. Git is a much larger software, or has more capabilities than we have time to discuss in just a week-to-week way, right? We're working with this for 2 weeks. All the material in the module plus a couple of hour-long live sessions with me. Hard to kind of cover everything in that amount of time, so we just kind of hit the high notes and do the best we can. But there's all sorts of stuff in here for using Git. And We looked at some of those commands last week. So if you need a refresher on the basic local commands for Git, well, we're going to do some demonstrations with it today. So we'll get to that. But also, you can go back and watch last week's live session. That's what it's there for. It's available to you all in the announcements just back 1 week ago today for you to go back and refresh yourselves on all of that. So let's go ahead and create a new project and let's get it to where we were previously in Git. And so in order to do that, I have too many windows open. I have this folder here. Right, one of the things that we said we would do in terms of how we use Git is we will create the folder that we're going to work in ahead of time. So we can see here in this folder, I have a folder called Git Project 2, and I'm going to open it up. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and make my file. Instead of going through the long way and doing it in like Visual Studio or whatever, I'm just going to create a new text file here. Right, if you're going to have a more, well fleshed out project, if you're going to have a more involved project than we're going to do today, you might want to, go ahead and build it in Visual Studio the way we've done with things in the past. But I'm just going to put an index.html file in here. And then I'm going to edit that index.html file just with, well, actually, Visual Studio Code is going to be just as easy to work with than Notepad, so we may as well just do that. I'm going to put my HTML skeleton in there using Emmet, just exclamation point, enter. This will just be our hello world, so I'll change the title here to hello world. And I will put an H1 in the body. That is just a hello world. And we'll save that. The contents of this site isn't important. What's important for us is that we're using Git. And so now we have our initial file staged here. We could have went ahead and initialized Git first and then made the file, or we can do like we just did here, where we have made the file, put it in the folder we want to work in, and now we can initialize Git. And so especially if I'm going to go back and make a bunch of changes to this later, which I might, this might be something that I do. So again, one of the things that I recommend that you all do is go ahead and navigate to your folder that you want to work in Windows Explorer. Right click in just some empty area in the folder, and if you have if you installed Git the same way we talked about last week, you should have in the context menu Git bash here, which will open up my Git command window from inside the right folder. Right, so we want to make sure that it's a folder that we have permissions in, right? So if we try to go through the C folder or something like that, it won't let us do that. So if we do it this way, we don't have to worry about changing, doing a lot of CD or change directory commands. We can just, it already has our directory that we're looking at for us. And last week, one of the first things that we said we would do is initialize Git in this project folder. So we said we'd put Git in it because that is the name of this command. So that's Git init. And so now we've initialized Git in our repository. So if we look back at our folder here, we see that we have a .git folder that we can see here because we turned on hidden items. If we turn off hidden items, that is hidden. If we turn on hidden items, it shows up there. And now we can take and we can stage all the files that we want to be in this version using git add. So git add period. The period there will stage all files that are in this folder. So I can do that. So now if I check my Git status, I can see that I'm on the master branch. No commits yet. But I do have a new file that's ready to be committed. So because I have a new file that's ready to be committed, I can run git commit, then add a -m and some sort of message in quotes. So in this case, it would be initial commit. Right, so now I have that initial commit made. And so if I looked at my Git status now, I see my working tree is clean. So if we were to go back here and we were to edit this file, maybe add a little something to it. Maybe a paragraph that just says like, how are you, right? We'll just make some quick edit to it here. Now this file's changed. I have Git initialized in this folder so it knows it changed. So if I run a Git status, it sees that I have a modified folder, or a modified file rather. So I can run my git add period again to make sure that it's working with all files. I have all files in my staging area. And I can git commit -m added paragraph. Just add some message about what you did. And there we go. We have a new commit. And so if we went back and we looked at the logs, right, that's something that we could do. We could run git log, and we could see the log of changes that we've made to this project. Right, we see we have this commit, which is our most recent commit. We know that because we have our message here. We see our time here, right? And if we were wanting to revert back to this commit, we could do that using the first few digits of this identifier hash, and we could use that to roll back the way we did last week. But we're not going to do that today, right? If you want a demonstration of that reversion, you can go back to last week and see that. This week we are going to take this that we've done here, and we are going to send it to GitHub. So let's talk about GitHub for a minute. Oh, I forgot to turn off the countdown screen. Let me kill that now. All right. So let's just kind of refresh our memories on what exactly GitHub is. So GitHub is just a site that is used for online storage of Git repositories, right? When you got in some of my classes maybe that you've got code files in before, you've seen these Git repositories. Like if you were in Web 2.15, yesterday when I sent my code files out for yesterday's lecture, I sent them in a Git repo. And so it's just a website where people can view this code, share this code, and they can view and share it using Git. So all we're doing is we're taking our local repository that we're making on our machines, and we're basically pushing it into the cloud. We're pushing it to the internet so that we can share it with other people, work collaboratively, whatever we need to do there, right? That's kind of the whole thing with, like your project. That's how you're going to be, right? One of your teammates is going to be in charge of the repo. Everybody else is going to make a copy of that repo. We'll look at how we do that today during our demo as well, so we can make changes and push it back and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of tools that are available for you as a student at github.com/edu. But if your project is open, open source, they give you basically as much free space as you want. Otherwise, you have to pay for the 5 private projects. But you do get a few free private repos for educational use. If again you go to github.com/edu. In fact, there's a lot of good benefits to that GitHub gives you at the edu page. Right, we can pull that up for a second and just view the benefits. So you can see here, as a GitHub student, you get GitHub Pro free while you are a student, which means that you get those private repositories. You get a student developer pack, and you get qualified for expert trainings. And that developer pack has a bunch of tools that are in it. Got some little classes here on how to do different things, different benefits and things that it offers you, different software that you might have access to. Right, and that's by getting the student developer pack. Which is pretty neat. So I'd recommend all of you kind of look into that, because you do get a lot of good resources here from that. And so really the only thing that we have left to do here is to kind of do our demonstration and work with it. So the next place that we need to go here is GitHub itself, so we can actually work with it. So let's head over to GitHub. This is GitHub. This is what it looks like after you log in. This is my kind of Git homepage after I log into the site. This is kind of your dashboard. Has some recent repositories here on the left-hand side. I can look at all of my repositories by going up here to my icon in the upper right-hand corner. I can see my repositories, and we can see like the things that we did. Here's the responsive web design grid that we did yesterday. If I click that, I can see these code files. I can click here and I can look at the code. And I can also click this commit here where it says one commit, and that's going to show me the same thing that we would see if I were to run git log in my Git terminal here. Right? It has all the history. So if multiple people have done multiple commits to this project, right? Like we can look at this one. We're going to practice with this one a little bit later. This is a little practice Git that we can play with. Right, well, we can see here we have 7 commits here. And they're all commits from this individual. And we'll see how we deal with someone else's repo in just a little bit. Right, we see that there are 214 forks of this. That should tell you. That should kind of give you an idea of what we have to do there. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to take this file that we're working with here, our index.html, and we want to put it into a repository. So from my GitHub homepage, I can just click this new button here, and that will create me a new repo, right? Or take me to a screen to create a new repo. So for my purposes, all I really need to do here is I need to just give it a name, right? So we'll call this Web 140. I'll probably have to name it something a little more descriptive, like maybe Fa22 test repo. Because all of your repos need to be unique. So if you have a unique name for your repo, then it won't conflict with any of your other repos. And that's basically all you need to do. You can add a README file if you want, or you can just create a README file with your code if you think you would want a README file just to kind of give instructions or give some basic information. But when we do that and just click Create Repository, it'll create my repository. So now there are a few things here that we can look at. Right, one is going to be this item right here. This is the link that we're going to use to upload to this repo. And so really all we have to do here is just kind of follow these instructions. And there is one thing that we can kind of skip, right? Because when we set up our program, our software last week, we set it up to default to the branch master. So this is just telling you here how to change it to branch main. So that's that git branch dash uppercase M main, and then you can use main down here. We're not going to change our branch. We're going to leave our branch the same. So when we push here, we're going to push to origin master instead of origin main. So since we already have an existing repo on our computer, I can just go down here to this or push an existing repository from the command line. So I'm just going to take this line here to add my origin, copy it, paste it here into my right click and paste it here into my file and clean it up. It looks like it copied some extra stuff with it. So git remote add origin. The origin is the place where I want to send it. That's this git. Now I want to just push origin master. So git push -u origin master. And that should push my file, which is exactly what it says it's done here. What it might do the first time you do this, it might ask you for your GitHub login just to validate that you are who you say you are and that you're able to push to this repository. Right, so I've already done that step, so I don't have to worry about authenticating myself. I just push it and it is gone. Right, and so if we go back here and we refresh this page, we see, oh wow, now I got an index.html. That's the code file that we've been working in. We can look there and we can see it. Right, there are all our changes. We can even look back at the history of this and see, oh look, I have 2 commits here. I have the initial commit, and here's the code that was in the initial commit, and I have the added paragraph commit. And here's the changed code that was in there. One of the things that we can look at here is that I have split code and unified code. If I look at the unified code, that's going to show me the changes alongside of the way it was before. And if I look at the split code, that shows me both the old code and the new code. One on the left, one on the right. Unified's all in one. Right, so we have a bunch of different things here that we can look at. We see, one branch, that's our master branch. We can look at it there. It's called master. That's why we pushed origin master, because that's what it is by default here. If you changed your default branch name, you would use your default branch name there. And some of these that we'll get into in a little bit, right? We have code, we have issues. Issues are places where you can kind of create an issue. So this would be good for your projects, right? Your final projects. You can come in here, you can create an issue. You can say, oh, hey, we need to add blah, blah, right? Whatever. Leave a description, submit the new issue. Then the people that are working on your group with you, you can actually assign it to other users who are there. So you could say, oh, right, Johnny, you said you were going to be working on the jQuery, so we need to fix this in the jQuery. Fix the jQuery. We need to fix the jQuery. Assign it to Johnny. In this case, all I have is myself, so I will assign it to myself. Maybe give it a label. Maybe give it like a due date or a milestone, right? We can just put a milestone into it and submit that issue. Right, so now we have an issue. So now we can talk back and forth on this as well, right? And when it's done, we can close it. So we can close the issue. Once it's closed, we can reopen it. And you're good to go. So that's one way you can use this tool. Pull requests we'll look more at in just a little bit. Pull request is when somebody is giving you code. So once you are submitting code to be used on the main project, you will open a pull request. And that will give the owner of the repo the opportunity to merge or not to merge the code you're adding. Actions here just gives you some different plugins and things to throw in there. We don't really need to worry about those. Projects here, we don't really need to worry about that for our particular purpose here. Wiki, you might want to create a wiki in your repo just to kind of be, lay out a status, do some different things, document what you've done. Right, this might even be a good place to put your tests and things like that you're doing when you get to the point where you're working on your website and doing some tests there. Right, so we can create a page in here. We can do all that sort of stuff that we need to do with that, and that'll add to the wiki. Some security policies here. For our purposes, probably not a huge deal. Insights here, we can see, who's contributed, how much they've contributed, right? And I can see, and something else about this, right? I can see this, right? There's an Insights tab on every one, whether you're working with it or not. So I can see at a glance who's contributed, how much they've contributed, when they contributed, right? So that's another thing that's good for me as your instructor, because I can work with that, right? So that's on the Insights tab. Lots of stuff there. Just have a look through it, right? Settings. So this is where you'll add your collaborators. You'll go to Settings, you'll go to Collaborators. It'll ask you for your password. Which I'll just log back into here. And this is where you can add people to be a collaborator. So you'll add your group members here. Right, another thing that you might want to use on this page, or that you will need to use on this page, is the Pages section. Right, so Pages allows me to create a public website that's based off of static HTML and CSS files. So all I need to do here is click on the Pages icon here on the left, select the branch that it's on, which in this case it is master, and then click Save. And it'll take a few minutes to generate. Right, it'll take a few minutes to generate, but what it's doing right now in the background is it's taking that static HTML page and it's putting it on the web. We'll refresh, we'll kind of talk about what it's doing here while it's doing it in the background. Right, because what I ask you for whenever you submit your projects from here on out is for your GitHub repo page and your GitHub live site. And that's what we're talking about here, is this GitHub Pages live site. Right, so remember that if I want to have a site that just goes directly there. It needs to be called index.html, which is why we called this code index.html. If I use a different name for my HTML file, then when I get this URL, which is not here yet, it will be soon. Hopefully, right? It should be soon. It just takes a while to do it. So you might have to, click the button, go, and then come back. And it'll do its thing. There it is. All right, so there's my URL. Since the name of my page is index.html, I can just visit the site. And oh, that's the wrong. Oh, this is on RWD grid. I meant to be on this one. Pages from master save. But you get the picture, right? That's the same deal here. Pages will come up. You'll be able to see it. That's if you're in Web 2.15, this is familiar because this is what we did yesterday, right? Responsive website. Ooh. But the one that we're doing today is over here. And again, it just takes a few minutes for it to go live, right? Because it's got hundreds of thousands of these to deal with. So we'll get there. And if we make a change to our code, we do the exact same thing, right? So we would make the change locally. We would add something like, let's add a p tag here. Here's another paragraph. Save it, right? And so from here, we can just do the exact same process we just did. Git add period, git commit -m added another paragraph. Now, since I already have an origin added, I can just push, right? When we copied that URL here, git remote add origin, we are adding that origin. So now we can just git push origin from master. And if you're wondering what the name of your branch is, it's out here, right? That's how I know mine's called master. So I can say origin master, and it's going to push the changes. It tells me it pushes them. So now if I go back here to my GitHub, I can refresh this. I can see, look, I have a new commit that was made 41 seconds ago. And there's my other paragraph that's in there. Let's see if it's had time for our pages to update since then. Yes, it has. And there it is. Right, we have our hello, we have our how are you. It hasn't quite had time to update with our new code that we've pushed to that yet, since it just was created, but it will soon enough, right? Because it updates automatically without me having to tell it. It just takes a few minutes, right? Everything's queued up. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these things that it's dealing with. And so when we look at our GitHub page, we can see that I have 3 commits now. And I have one where I've added another paragraph. And so that's how I deal with my own GitHub pages and repositories. There's that other paragraph. But how do I deal with somebody else's? And that's what we're going to do next. So I'm on this page here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to fork it. Right up here in the upper right-hand corner, we see this fork button. We see that 214 people have forked this GitHub repo, and I'm about to be one of them. I'm going to click that GitHub repo. And so it tells me, okay, this is going to me now. So it's not going to be on PIC16B's GitHub anymore. It's going to be on my GitHub. And I can change the name of it. I'm going to leave it at Git Practice-1. And so it's going to give it a description, a very simple repo for practicing with Git and GitHub. And then it's going to copy the main branch only. So in this case, my branch is called main. and I'm going to create the fork. And so now we see that this branch is up to date with PIC 16b get practice main, but this is my GitHub. So now what I want to do is I want to pull this code down. So I'm going to click this green drop down button here to open this up, and I'm going to copy this code for this HTTPS right here. That's the remote repository for this. Now I need a new file for this, a new folder, because this is its own separate project. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new folder. This is going to be Git Other Repo. Right, I can close the Git window that I have open. Open this folder. Right click in here anywhere. Select Run Git Bash here. And now I'm going to run Git clone and paste that URL that we got. And so now it'll clone that project and pull it down and put it in our folder. So now we have that project here. Right, we see that it's created a subfolder here for me, and it's that subfolder that has the .git in it. So we need to cd into the folder git-practice-1. So git-practice-1. And now if we list our files, we see that there's a readme.md in there. Do I have V installed on this computer yet? I do! Hey! So I can edit this from here if I want to. Right, this is Vim. So I can create an edit here. Or I can open this and edit it in Visual Studio Code or whatever. And so what we'll do is we'll just, we'll go to where it tells me to edit my code, which is up here at the top, right? Or we can just add a new file to it. Right, but it says to put your step 3 edit here, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's just delete all of that and just type in here let's see, do I remember how to use V? Insert hello and hello, I am Mr. Ramsey. And we will and now that we are in normal mode, I think I can go down here. It's been a minute since I've used V. I like Visual Studio so much. Escape, :WQ, and enter. Good. So now we've changed that file, right? We can go in here and look in here and we can see it change. So if I opened it in Visual Studio Code, I could have just as easily done that, right? We can see it in here. Boom, there it is. There's our save. So now I'm ready to push it back up. Right, I've made my change. I can look at my Git status, and I can see that I've modified it. I can look at my Git log, and I can see all of the changes that are made. So I can get it's gotten stuck on me here. What do we need done? What have we got done? There we go. page down again, right? Or page up, page down. And insert, Control C. Well, worst comes to worst, I can just close this window and then reopen it. So now I can git add period, git commit -m made my personal change. And now I can git push origin, and this time, since it's called main and not master, I can add main. And that'll push it up to my GitHub. And so since I cloned it down, right, it set the origin when I cloned it down. The clone is from the origin point. So if I go back to my GitHub now, right, to my file, right, it's mine, I can refresh this, and I can see there's my change. So now what I can do is I can go here to contribute. Because this branch is different than the main branch. So if I go here to contribute, I can open a pull request. And from here, I can leave them a little message saying just demonstrating some practice with GitHub. Feel free to deny the PR pull request, right? And so from here, I can create the pull request, which means it'll open it, and the owner of the main repository, PIC16B, will be able to review it and select whether or not it should go into the code. So now basically my job's done here, right? I'm waiting on this person, the person with the right access, to merge my pull request. If that is you, you'd basically just come in here and you would add, there'd be a button here that says merge. You can click that merge button. Or you could write them a comment back and saying, you know what, this is not what we were looking for. We don't really need this. Or maybe you can make this change and try again. Or what have you, and then they can try again. Right? So it's pretty cool. So for our purposes now, I'm just going to close this pull request. And I will also unsubscribe so I don't get a notification about him denying my pull request. But that's basically it, right? Like, we did it. We were able to make the change and do what we needed to do to get that done. All right, so that's pretty cool. Well, apparently I just got a new achievement for closing that pull request so fast. That's cute. But that's really, that's Git in a nutshell, right? Like, we just did everything that you would be expected to do in Git basically this entire semester long. Right? We created a file, we uploaded it to Git. We made changes, we put those on GitHub. We used another repository. We cloned it down, we made some changes to it. We uploaded them back, we chose to merge them. Right? Pretty cool. We did it. We've basically done everything that we need to do in Git this entire semester. And so really that's all that I have for you for today. Kind of went through all that pretty quickly, but I don't necessarily think it's all that complicated. Right? So for those of you who are watching later on, what you might want to do, since you have the ability to stop the video, pause the video, is go back, rewatch, do a little bit along, pause the video while you're working, so you can make all the changes and the things that you need to do, and just kind of slowly step through it. But that's all that I have for you for today. Again, thanks for watching. We'll turn the music back on just in case anybody who has any questions here with me live has any questions. If you're watching the recording and you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.